Apologize for the math in the background. Also, I don't have my good mic connected. Let me whoop. Okay. Oh, this is probably not a good idea to connect my mic now. So sorry. I apologize if this stream is of lower sound quality than usual. Tell me in the chat right now, my one viewer. Tell me, does it sound all right? Tell me, is the sound quality horrible? Or is it unnoticeably different? I don't know who my one viewer is. Let me go on to subscriptions. Yes. I don't know. It sounds fine. Whoever that one viewer is, you're letting me down, and that you're not telling me whether the sound is correct or not. Two viewers. The other viewer's me. I'm watching my own stream. All right. Under the opening fingers of the dawn, Alcinous, the sacred prince, arose, and then arose Odysseus, raider of cities. As the king willed, they went down by the shipways to the assembly ground of the Phaeacians. Side by side, the two men took their ease there, on smooth stone benches. Meanwhile, Pallas Athena roamed through the byways of the town, contriving Odysseus's voyage home. In voice and feature, the crier of the king Alcinous, who stopped and passed the word to every man. Phaeacians, lords, and counselors, this way. Come to assembly, learn about the stranger, the new guest at the palace of Alcinous. A man the sea drove, but a comely man. The god's own light is on him. She aroused them, and soon the assembly ground and seats were filled with curious men, a throng who peered and saw the mastermind of war, Laertes' son. Athena now poured out her grace upon him, head and shoulders, height and mass, a splendor awesome to the eyes of the Phaeacians. She put him in a fettle to win the day, mastering every trial they set to test him. When all the crowd sat marshaled, quieted, Alcinous addressed the full assembly. Hear me, lords and captains of the Phaeacians. Hear what my heart would have me say. Our guest and new friend, nameless to me still, comes to my house after long wandering in dawn's lands or among the sunset races. Now he appeals to me for conveyance home. As in the past, therefore, let us provide passage, and quickly, for no guest of mine languishes here for lack of it. Look to it. Get a black ship afloat on the noble sea, and pick our fastest sailor. Draft a crew of 250 from our younger townsmen, who have made their names at sea. Loop oars well to your thole pins, lads, then leave the ship. Come to our house, fall to, and take your supper. We'll furnish out a feast for every crewman. These are your orders. As for my old peers and princes of the realm, let them foregather in festival for our friend in my great hall. And let no man refuse. Call in our minstrel, the Demodocus, whom God made Lord of Song. Heart easing, sing upon what theme he will. All right. Okay, so basically what's happening here is that Athena disguised herself as Alcinous, and then she made Alcinous present to all these people who are going to be the crew for Odysseus's return home. And he basically said, all right, yeah, come on, please just help us out. Just, give us a little hand, we need some help with this Odysseus guy. He turned, led the procession, and those princes followed, while his herald sought the minstrel. Young oarsmen from the assembly chose a crew of 250, as the king commanded, and those filed off along the water's side to where the ship lay, poised above open water. They hauled the black hull down to ride the sea, rigging a mast and spar in the black ship, with oars that trail from corded rawhide, all seamanly, then tried to the white sail, hoisting and moored her off the beach. Then going ashore, the crew went up to the great house of Alcinous. Here the enclosures, entranceways, and rooms were filled with men, young men and old, for whom Alcinous had put 12 sheep to sacrifice, 8 tuskers, and a pair of shambling oxen. These now they flayed and dressed to make their banquet. The crier soon came, leading that man of song whom the muse cherished. By her gift he knew the good of life and evil, for she who lent him sweetness made him blind. Pontinus made a studded chair for him, hard by a pillar amid the banqueters, hanging the taut harp from a peg above him, and guided up his hand upon the strings, placed a bread basket at his side, and poured wine in a cup, that he might drink his fill. Now each man's hand went out upon the banquet. In time, when hunger and thirst were turned away, the muse brought to the minstrel mind a song of heroes whose great fame rang under heaven. The clash between Odysseus and Achilles. How one time they contended at the god feast, raging, and the martial Agamemnon felt inward joy over his captain's quarrel. For such had been foretold him by Apollo at Pytho, hallowed height, when the Aeacian crossed that portal of rock to ask a sign. In the old days, when grim war lay ahead for Trojans and Danaans, by God's will, so ran the tale the minstrel sang. Odysseus, with massive hand, drew his rich mantle down over his brow, cloaking his face with it, to make the Phaeacians miss the secret tears that started to his eyes. How skillfully he dried them when the song came to a pause. Threw back his mantle, spilt his gout of wine, but soon the minstrel plucked his note once more, to please the Phaeacian lords, who loved the song. Then in his cloak Odysseus wept again. His tears flowed in the mantle unperceived. Only Alcinous at his elbow saw them, and caught the low groan in the man's breathing. That's basically what's going on here. They set sail, and they had a feast. That's it, and they had song, and now Odysseus is crying, and Alcinous is the only one who noticed. And so they're trying to figure out, why is he crying? Whoa. At once he spoke to all the sea folk round him. Hear me, lords and captains of the Phaeacians. Our meat is shared, our hearts are full of pleasure, from the clear harp tone that accords with feasting. Now for the field and track, we shall have trials in the pentathlon. Pentathlon? It's like triathlon, but with 5 things. Let our guest go home and tell his friends what champions we are at boxing, wrestling, broad jump, and foot racing. It's basically they're having a pentathlon. And Alcinous is just like, let's have him tell stories. I guess it's to cheer Odysseus up. But it's kind of weird how he would have a pentathlon. That's how you say it. Pentathlon. While on a boat. On this he led the way, and all went after. The crier unslung and pegged the shining harp, and taking Demodocus's hand, led him along with all the rest, Phaeacian peers, gay amateurs of the great games. They gained the common where a crowd was forming, and many a young athlete now came forward with seaside names like Tipmast, Tide Race, Sparwood, Hullman, Sternman, Beecher, and Pullerman, Blue Water, Shearwater, Running Wake, Bordeley, Seabelt, son of Gandfleet Shipwritson, Sea Reach stepped up, son of the launching master. What is going on? Okay, so if that was not actually me being confused. It's just they're giving the names of all the people who are joining in, but they're like nicknames. I don't know. It's weird. Son of the launching master, rugged as Ares, bane of men, his build excelled all but the prince Laodamas. And Laodamas made entry with his brothers, Helios and Clytonius, sons of the king. The runners first must have their quarter mile, all lined up tense, then go. And down the track they raise the dust in a flying bunch, strung out longer and longer behind Prince Clytonius, but by just so far as a mule team, breaking ground, will distance oxen. He left all behind and came up to the crowd, an easy winner. And then they made room for wrestling, grinding bouts that Sea Reach won, pinning the strongest men. Then the broad jump. First place went to Seabelt. Sparwood gave the discuss, the mightiest flame. And Prince Laodamas outboxed them all. Now it was he, the son of Alcinous, who said when they had run through these diversions, "Look here, friends, we ought to ask the stranger if he competes in something. He's no cripple. Look at his leg muscles and his forearms. Oh, wait, I gotta get my leg up. It's unnecessary. Neck like a bollard, strong as a bull he seems, and not old, though he may have gone stale under the rough times he had. Nothing like the sea for wearing out the toughest man alive. The Sea Reach took him up at once and said, "Laodamas, you were right, by all the powers. Go up to him yourself and put the question." At this, Alcinous' tall son advanced to the center ground, and there addressed Odysseus. "Friend, excellency, come join our competition, if you're practiced, as you seem to be. While a man lives, he wins no greater honor than footwork and the skill of hands can bring him. Enter our games, then, ease your heart of trouble. Your journey home is not far off, remember? The ship is launched, the crew all primed for sea." That's basically what's going on. They went through with the pentathlon, and now they're like, why don't we let Odysseus play? And they're like, sure, why not? And he's like, hey, dude, you want to play? You look like a buff guy. You're no cripple. You're no cripple. Odysseus, canniest of men, replied, "Laodamas, why do you young chaps challenge me? I have more on my mind than track and field. Hard days, and many, have I seen and suffered. I sit here at your field meet, yes, but only as one who begs your king to send him home." Now Sea Reach put his word in, and contentiously. "The reason being, I see it, friend, you never learned a sport, and have no skill in any of the contests of fighting men. You must have been the skipper of some tramp that crawled from one port to the next, jam full of chaffering hands, a tallier of cargoes, itching for gold, not by your looks an athlete." So basically, they're insulting Odysseus for not wanting to play. They're like young kids, and they're like, old man, what are you, like, weak? What are you weak? What is your mother, like a poor person? Odysseus frowned and eyed him coldly, saying, "That was uncalled for, friend. You talk like a fool. The gods deal out no gift, this one or any, birth, brains, or speech, to every man alike. In looks a man may be a shade, a spectre, and yet be master of speech, so crowned with beauty that people gaze at him with pleasure. Courteous, sure of himself, that he can command assemblies, and when he comes to town, the crowds gather. A handsome man, contrariwise, may lack grace and good sense in everything he says. You now, for instance, with your fine physique, a god's indeed, you have an empty noddle. I find my heart inside my ribs aroused by your impertinence. I am no stranger, note to contests, as you fancy. I rated well when I could count on youth in my two hands. Now pain has cramped me, and my years of combat, hacking through your ranks in war, and the bitter sea. Even so, I'll give your games a trial. You spoke heart-wounding words. You shall be answered." It's basically, after they insulted Odysseus is like, looks can be deceiving. Like someone who's attractive, maybe, like really bad at speaking. Take yourself for an example. You're a bit empty in the noddle. All right, I'll play in your games. I'll play your games. Alcinous' son, Laertes. He leapt out, cloaked as he was, and picked a discus. And discus? I don't know. Discus? Discus. Saying that wrong. Discus, a rounded stone, more ponderous than those already used by the Phycian throwers, and whirling let it fly from his great hand with a low hum. The crowd went flat on the ground. All those oars pooling, seafaring Phycians, under the rushing noise. The spinning disc soared out, light as a bird, beyond all others. Disguised now as a Phycian, Athena staked it out and called out. Even a blind man, friend, could judge this, finding with his fingers one discus, quite alone beyond the cluster. Athena is like Odysseus' hype man. She's like, yeah, Odysseus, you go. Woo! I love you, Odysseus. I think Athena has a crush on Odysseus, guys. I think she has a little bit of a crush on Odysseus. Congratulations, this event is yours. Not a man here can beat you or come near you. That was a cheering hail, Odysseus thought, seeing one friend there on the Do you see the paragraph that's coming up? It's gonna be horrible. It's gonna be awful. Emulous field. So, in relief, he turned among the Phycians and said, now come alongside that one, lads. The next I'll send as far, I think, or farther. Anyone else on the edge for competition? Try me now. By heaven, you angered me. Racing, wrestling, boxing. I bar nothing with any man except Laodamus, for he's my host. Who quarrels with his host? Only a madman, or no man at all, would challenge his protector among strangers, cutting the ground away under his feet. Here are no others I will not engage, none but I hope to know what he is made of. Inept at combat am I? Not entirely. Give me a smooth bow, I can handle it, and I might well be first to hit my man amid a swarm of enemies. Through archers and company around me drew together. Philoctetes alone at Troy, when we Achaeans took the bow, used to outshoot me, a men who now eat bread upon the earth. I hold myself the best hand with a bow, conceding mastery to the men of the old, Heracles or Eurytes of Oikalia, heroes who vied with gods in bowmanship. Eurytes came to grief. It's true, old age never crept over him in his long haul. Apollo took his challenge ill and killed him. What then? The spear? I'll plant it like an arrow. Only in the sprinting, I'm afraid, I may be passed by someone. Roll of the sea waves wearied me, and the victuals in my ship ran low. My legs are flabby. So basically, Odysseus, like his ego's kind of going to his head a little bit after Athena hyped him up. You know, Athena's his hype man. She's like, "Woo, yeah, Odysseus." Odysseus is like, "Yeah, take that, idiots! I'll kill all of you. You have nothing on me. You mean nothing to me." Okay, how much longer in this? 135. I think it ends at 140. Oh god, it's already been 141. Oh, isn't that something else? If this takes too long, I'll divide it up into 2 parts. When he finished, the rest were silent, but Alcinous answered, "Friend, we take your challenge in good part, for this man angered and affronted you here at our peaceful games. You would have us note the prowess that is in you, and so clearly no man of sense would ever cry it down. Come turn your mind now on a thing to tell among your peers when you are home again, dining in hall, beside your wife and children. I mean our prowess, as you may remember it, for we too have our skills, given by Zeus, and practiced from our father's time to this, not in the boxing ring, nor in the palestra conspicuous, but in racing, land or sea. And all our days we set great store by feasting harpers, and the greats of dancing choirs, changes of dress, warm baths, and downy beds. O master dancers of the Phycians, Perform now. Let our guest on his return tell his companions we excel the world in dance and song, as in our ship and running. Someone go find the guitar and harp in hall and bring it quickly to Demodocus. At the serene king's word, a squire ran to bring the polished harp out of the palace, and place was given to 9 referees, peers of the realm, masters of ceremony, who had cleared a space and smoothed the dancing floor. The squire brought down and gave Demodocus a clear-toned harp, and centered on the minstrel, magical young dancers formed a circle with a light beat and stamp of fate. Beholding, Odysseus marveled at the flashing ring. Now to his harp, and blinded minstrel sang of Ares' dalliance with Aphrodite, how hidden in Hephaestus' house they played at love together, and the gifts of Ares, dishonoring Hephaestus' bed, and how the word that wounds the heart came to the master from Helios, who had seen the two embrace. And when he learned it, Lord Hephaestus went with baleful calculation to his forge. There mightily he armed his anvil block, and hammered out a chain whose tempered links could not be sprung or bent. He meant that they should hold. Those shackles fashioned hot in wrath, Hephaestus climbed to the bower, and the bed of love, pulled all his net of chain around the bedpost, and swung it from the rafters overhead. Light as a cobweb, even gods in bliss could not perceive. So wonderful in his cunning, seeing that his bed now made a snare, he feigned a journey to the trim stronghold of Lemnos, the dearest of earth's towns to him. And Ares, golden Ares watched, had its reward when he beheld great Smith leaving home. How promptly to the famous door he came, intent on pleasure with sweet Cytherea, she who had left her father's side but now sat in her chamber when her lover entered. Okay, so basically, they started. Alcinous was like, yeah, you're right, Odysseus. You kind of are a big burly man. I agree with you. You're a pretty great guy. And at this, people started like dancing, and they started getting out their harps. And Demodocus, he was like on the harp, and he played this beautiful song, which was about this story of Hephaestus making a great chain, and how Ares comes in onto his, Ares comes in onto his lover, and like the chain went around the bed or something. Like it was a beautiful decoration that Hephaestus made for Ares. And tenderly he pressed her hand and said, "Come and lie down, my darling, and be happy. Hephaestus is no longer here, but gone to see his grunting Sintian friends on Lemnos," as she too thought repose would be most welcome. The pair went into bed, into a shower of clever chains, the netting of Hephaestus, so trussed that they could not move apart nor rise. At last they knew there could be no escape. They were to see the glorious cripple now, for Helios had spied for him and told him. So he turned his back this side of Lemnos Isle, sick at heart, making his way homeward. Now in the doorway of the room he stood, while deadly rage took hold of him. His voice, hoarse and terrible, reached all the gods. "O Father Zeus, O gods in bliss forever, here is indecorous entertainment for you. Aphrodite, Zeus's daughter, caught me in the act, cheating me. Her cripple with Ares, devastating Ares. Clean-limbed beauty is her joy, not these bandy legs I came into the world with. No one to blame but the 2 gods who bred me. Come see this pair entwining here in my own bed. How hot it makes me burn. I think they may not care to lie much longer, pressing on one another, passionate lovers. They'll have enough of bed together soon. And yet the chain that bagged them holds them down, till father sends me back my wedding gifts. So all that I poured out for his damned pigeon, so lovely and so wanton." So basically, this is a betrayal. So one was Hephaestus' lover, and they cheated on Hephaestus with Ares, and then he put chains on the bed, and then that kept them there. I think that's what happened. They were caught in the act of cheating. Yeah, so then she's like, I've been caught cheating. I feel so bad. All the others were crowding in now to see the brazen house, Poseidon, who embraces earth, and Hermes, the runner, and Apollo, lord of distance. The goddess stayed home for shame, but these munificences ranged there in the doorway, and irresponsible among them all arose the laughter of the happy gods, gazing hard at Hephaestus's handiwork. The gods in turn remarked among themselves, "No dash in adultery now. The turquoise bag tags the hare. Hephaestus catches Ares, and Ares outran the wind. The lame god's craft has pinned him. Now shall he pay what is due from gods taken cuckoldry?" Cuckoldry? Oh, man. They made these improving remarks to one another, but Apollo leaned aside to say to Hermes, "Son of Zeus, beneficent wayfinder, would you accept a coverlet of chain, if only you lay by Aphrodite's golden side?" To this the wayfinder replied, shining, "Would I not, though, Apollo of distances? Wrap me in chains 3 times the weight of these. Come, goddesses and gods, to see the fun. Only let me lie beside the pale golden one." Oh, that was rhyme. The gods gave way again to the peals of laughter, all but Poseidon, and he never smiled, but urged Hephaestus to unpinion Ares, saying emphatically in a loud voice, "Free him, you will be paid, I swear. Ask what you will. He pays up every jot the gods decree." So basically, the gods are making fun of Ares and the girl. They're like, "Oh, what are you cheaters? Oh, you got trapped in Hephaestus's chains. Oh." And Poseidon's just like, "Okay, just just unchain them. I'll pay you. You know, I'll give you stuff." And so Hephaestus, to this the great game legs replied, "Poseidon, lord of the earth surrounding sea, I should not swear to a scoundrel's honor. What have I as surety from you, if Ares leaves me empty-handed, with my empty chain?" The earth-shaker for answer urged again, "Hephaestus, let us grant he goes, and leaves the fine unpaid. I swear then, I shall pay it." Then said the great game legs at last, "No more. You offer terms I cannot well refuse." And so Poseidon's like, I'll pay for it. If he doesn't pay for it, I'll pay for it. And he's like, all right, I'll unchain him. And then he unchains him. And down the strong god bent to set them free, till disencumbered of their bond, the chain the lovers leapt away, he into Thrace, while Aphrodite's laughter's darling fled to Kypros, Isle, and Paphos, to her meadow and altar dim with incense. There the Graces bathed and anointed her with golden oil, a bloom that clings upon immortal flesh alone, and let her folds of mantle fall in glory. So ran the song the minstrel sang. Okay, so that was just the events of the song. Odysseus listened, found sweet pleasure in the tale, among the Phaeacians, mariners and oarsmen, and next to Alcinous called upon his sons, Helios and Laodamas, to show the dance no one could do as well as they, handling a purple ball carven by Polybus. One made it shoot up under the shadowing clouds as he leaned backward, bounding high in air. The other cut its flight far off the ground, and neither missed a step as the ball soared. The next turn was to keep it low, and shuttling hard between them, while the ring of boys gave them a steady stamping beat. Odysseus now addressed Alcinous. "O Majesty, model of all your folk, your promise was to show me peerless dancers. Here's the promise that kept. I am all wonder." At this, Alcinous, in his might rejoicing, said to the seafarers of Phaeacia, "Attend me now, Phaeacian lords and captains. Our guest appears a clear-eyed man and wise. Come, let him feel our bounty as he should. Here are 12 princes of the kingdom, lords paramount, and who I make 13. Let each one bring a laundered cloak and tunic, and add 1 bar of honorable gold. Heap all of your gifts together, load his arms, let him go joyous to our evening feast. As for sea reach, why, man to man, he'll make amends, and handsomely he blundered." So basically what's going on now is Odysseus is like, this is really good. I really enjoy this. And so Alcinous is like, I see you're clear-minded, clear-headed like Telemachus. I'm changing my way I pronounce Telemachus to Telemachus. And he's like, okay, let's give him some gifts. Let's pile up under the gift tree. The gift tree. Now all as one acclaimed the god's good pleasure, and each one sent a squire to bring his gifts. Meanwhile, Sea Reach found speech again, saying, My lord and model of us all, Alcinous, as you require of me in satisfaction, this broad sword of clear bronze goes to our guest. Its hilt is silver, and the ringed sheath of new sawn ivory, a costly weapon. He turned to give the broadsword to Odysseus, facing him, saying blithely, Sir, my best wishes, my respects. If I offend, I hope if I offended, I hope the sea winds blow it out of mind. God sends you see your lady and your homeland soon again, after the pain of exile. Odysseus, the great tactician, answered, My hand, friend. May the gods award you fortune. I hope no pressing need comes on you ever, for this fine blade you give me in amends. He slung it, glinting silver, from his shoulder, as the light shone from sundown. Messengers were bearing gifts and treasure to the palace, where the king's sons received them all, and made a glittering pile at the grave mother's side. Then, as Alcinous took his throne of power, each went to his own high-backed chair in return. And said Alcinous to Arete, Lady, bring here a chest, the finest one, a clean cloak and tunic. Stow these things, warm a cauldron for him. Let him bathe when he has seen the gifts of the Phaeacians, and so dine happily to a running song, my own wine cup of golden taglio. I'll give him too, through all the days to come, tipping his wine to Zeus or other gods. In his great hall he shall remember me. Then said Arete to her maids, The tripod, stand the great tripod legs about the fire. Basically what's going on, they give him gifts. One guy gives him a sword and he's like, gives Odysseus a sword. And Odysseus is like, thank you. And now he's talking to a god and he's like, hey, prepare some new clothes, give him a chest. It just sets things up for Odysseus. And that's what, they're just making it all nice for Odysseus. They swung the cauldron on the fire's hearth, poured water in, and fed the blaze beneath until the basin simmered, cupped in flame. The queen set out a rich chest from her chamber, and folded in the gifts, clothing and gold given Odysseus by the Phaeacians. Then she put in the royal cloak and tunic, briskly sang to her guest, Now here, sir, took to the lid yourself, and tie it down against the light fingers, if there be any, on the black ship tonight while you are sleeping. Noble Odysseus, expert in adversity, battened the lid down with a lightning knot, learned once, long ago, from the lady Kirk, I don't know, Cirque, Kirk, okay. And soon a call came from the bathing mistress, who led him to a hip bath, warm and clear, a happy sight, and rare in his emergence after he left Calypso's home, where surely the luxuries of God were ever his. When the bath maids had washed him, rubbed him down, put a fresh tunic and a cloak around him, he left the bathing place to join the men at wine and hall. So basically, he gets treated like a good guy. He gets bathed and he gets new clothes and he's treated as a good guy. The princess Nausicaa, exquisite figure as of heaven's shaping, waited beside a pillar as he passed, and said swiftly, with wonder in her look, Farewell, stranger, in your land remember me, who met and saved you. It is worth your thought. The man of all occasions now met this. Daughter of great Alcinous, Nausicaa, may Zeus, the lord of thunder, Hera's consort, grant me daybreak again in my own country. But there and all my days until I die, may I invoke you as I would a goddess, princess, to whom I owe my life. He left her and went to take his place beside the king. Now when the roasts were cut, the wine bowls full, a herald led the minstrel down the room, amid the deference of the crowd, and paused to seat him near a pillar in the center. Whereupon that resourceful man, Odysseus, carved out a quarter from his chine of pork, crisp with fat, and called the blind man's guide. Herald, Here, take this to Demedicus. Let him feast and be merry with my compliments and awe, for they are dearest to the muse, who puts upon their lips the ways of life. Gentle Demedicus took the pre-offered gift and inwardly rejoiced. When all were served, every man's hands went out upon the banquet, repelling hunger and thirst, until at length Odysseus spoke again to the blind minstrel. Demedicus, accept my utmost praise. The Muse, daughter of Zeus in radiance, or else Apollo gave you this skill to shape with such great style your song of the Achaeans. Their hard lot, how they fought and suffered war. You shared it, one would say, or heard it all. Now shift your theme and sing that wooden horse Epeius built, inspired by Athena. The ambuscade Odysseus filled with fighters and sent to take the inner town of Troy. Sing only this for me, sing me this well, and I shall say at once before the world, the grace of heaven has given us a song. So basically Odysseus is departing now. He's giving like a feast. Everyone's like having a good time, and he's complimenting people. He's like, Demedicus, you are so good on the harp. You must have been given that gift by the gods. The minstrels stirred, murmuring to the god, and soon clear words and notes came one by one. A vision of the Achaeans in the graceful ships, drawing away from shore, the torches flung and shelters flaring. Argive soldiers crouched in the closed dark around Odysseus, and the horse, tall on the assembly ground of Troy. For when the Trojans pulled in themselves up to the citadel, they sat nearby with long drawn out and hapless argument, favoring in the end one course of three, either to stave the vault with brazen axes, or haul it to a cliff and pitch it down, or else to save it for the gods, a votive glory, the plan that could not but prevail. For Troy must perish, as ordained, that day she harbored the great horse of timber. Hidden the flowers of Achaea lay, and bore slaughter and death upon the men of Troy. He sang then of the town sacked by the Achaeans, pouring down from the horse's hollow cave, this way, that way, raping the steep city, and how Odysseus came like Ares to the door of Deiphobos with Menelaus, and carved the desperate fight there, conquering once more by Athena's power. So basically, Demedicus is now singing about the Trojan War, and he's doing good days, sir. The splendid minstrel sang it, and Odysseus let the bright molten tears run down his cheeks. So Odysseus finds this song very, very sad. Weeping the way, a wife mourns for her lord on the lost field where he had gone down fighting, the day of wrath that came upon his children. At sight of the man, panting and dying there, she slips down to enfold him, crying out, then feels the spears, prodding her back and shoulders, and goes bound into slavery and grief. Piteous, weeping wears away her cheeks, but no more piteous than Odysseus' tears. Cloaked as they were now from the company, only Alcinous at his elbow knew, hearing the low sob in the man's breathing, and when he knew, he spoke. So basically Odysseus is very sad, and he's like, hear me, lords and captains of Phycia, and let Demedicus touch his harp no more. His theme has not been pleasing to all here. During the feast, since our fine poet sang, our guest has never left off weeping. Grief seems fixed upon his heart. Break off the song. Let everyone be easy, host and guest. There's more decorum in a smiling banquet. We had prepared here, on our friend's behalf, safe conduct in a ship, and gifts to cheer him, holding that any man with the grain of wit will treat a decent suppliant like a brother. Now, by the same rule, friend, you must not be secretive any longer. Come, in fairness, tell me the name you bore in that far country. How were you known to family and neighbors? No man is nameless, no man, good or bad, but gets a name in his first infancy, none being born unless a mother bears him. Tell me your native land, your coast and city, sailing directions for the ships, for those Phycian ships of ours that have no steersman and no steering oar, divining the crew's wishes as they do, and knowing as they do the ports of call about the world. Hidden in mist or cloud, they scud into open sea, with never a thought of being in distress or going down. There is, however, something I once heard Nausithous, my father, say. Poseidon holds it against us that our deep sea ships are sure conveyance for all passengers. My father said someday one of our cutters, homeward bound over the cloudy sea, would be wrecked by the god, and a range of hills thrown around our city. So in his age, he said, and let it be or not be as the god please. But come, now, put it for me clearly. Tell me the sea ways that you wandered, and the shores you touched, the cities and the men therein, uncivilized if such there were, and hostile, and those God-fearing who had kindly manners. Tell me why you should grieve so terribly over the Argives and the fall of Troy. That was all God's work, weaving ruin there, so it should make a song for men to come. Some kin of yours, then, died at Ilion, some first-rate men, by marriage near to you, next your own blood most dear, or some companion of congenial mind or in valor. True it is, a wise friend can take a brother's place in our affection, and that's where it ends. It's basically what happened is this guy's like, stop the music, it's making Odysseus sad. Except he didn't know Odysseus' name. It's making our guest sad. Now, a guest, tell us your name, tell us who you are, tell us why are you here, tell us your stories, just stop being secretive. Now a summary of the entire book. Okay, so the summary of this book is that they're getting prepared. Athena gathers all these crewmen, and the crewmen get the ship ready, and then they start some games to lighten the mood. And now Odysseus, he joins in, and he's like better than everyone, and he gets a little cocky from that. And Athena's like his hype man, but then they're like, Odysseus, they're like, you are a man of strength. I appreciate you. And so they bathe him, they give him gifts, they sing songs, they feast. This entire thing was just singing songs and feasts and just games. There's nothing, literally nothing happened in this chapter. It's a filler chapter. It's a filler book. It's just like a filler episode in any TV show. It's like Fly in Breaking Bad. It's horrible, horrible book. But anyway, then he's like, my guest, what is your name? Where do you come from? So on and so forth. That's the summary. God, end it. God, stop.